Welcome to the Sedona Soul Sisters Show, down-to-earth discussions on metaphysics, spirituality, paranormal, and healing topics. The Sedona Soul Sisters are the most trusted psychic mediums in Sedona, Arizona. We are Rosalind Reynolds, who's still trying to get into the Zoom room today, myself, Ivory Lanou, and Terry Ann Russell. We have offices in Sedona, Arizona, where we see clients from all over the world. Today's topic is spiritual symbols. They're everywhere. That's why we're talking about it. So literally from the leaf of the Bodhi tree to the dream catcher on your bedside, they symbolize something. They're not, you see them all the time, but you might not know what they really mean. And then sometimes there's a lot of preconceived notions about what they mean that are inaccurate. So we're going to cover all of that today, and not just Christian symbols, but trying to kind of hit all around the world here with a little bit of everything. Some of them have an aura that they just generate themselves through the symbol that are so powerful that it really can impact a sense of deep understanding and wisdom. So it's good. People use these. If you know what they mean, they can help you even more. They're part of ancient history. You know, some of these have been around thousands of years, which is pretty amazing. These figures require little or no words and yet speak so much. So especially back when there was no written communication or very little written communication, they used symbols. And that's where these are born from. Oh, I feel angels coming in about that. That's interesting. Apart from being effective communication, divine symbols are also, they're extremely personal. You know, I know for me, I have my special one behind me, the triple spiral, that's always been a big one for me. And so everybody's got something they're drawn to. And it might be because it's trying to communicate something with your spiritual beings. So maybe today learning what these symbols are really about, their history, might explain why you're so drawn to a specific symbol. So I thought
I love triangles. Triangles is mine. You like the spirals and I like the straight lines. I've always been drawn to triangles and very clean lines.
That would make me think you've got some connection to Egypt.
Yes, well, I was going to say the first symbol I think I ever received was the Eye of Ra, and I didn't even know what that was. I just my third eye, it just popped in, and I was like, so I tried to write it and draw it out, and then tried to do some research, like, what is this and where is this coming from? And so there you go, a big Egypt.
Oh yeah, that's not a surprise. Well, I thought we'd start with probably the most widely recognized in the world, which is the cross, you know, the Christian cross. And we know, just looking at it, that's associated with Christianity, recognized worldwide, considered one of the most sacred symbols worldwide. And the gesture of crossing oneself, you know, is part of it, the gesture that we make. I was raised Catholic. I know to do that. And so that's something that is also associated with a cross, that this, you know, the story, the reality of Jesus, you know, being crucified on a cross and sacrificing himself for mankind. And that's why that symbol is there. It symbolizes the cross that Jesus was sacrificed on. So that's not the word I want to use, but that's what it is the cross that Jesus was put on. So when you see that, you know, it has very deep meaning for anybody who is of Christian faith. They think of that day, that moment, his sacrifice he made for us. And you'll see that everywhere. You know I am not, I don't consider myself Catholic anymore, but I have cross. I love to wear my cross, and I do feel a vibration, a frequency from it that is important to me.
Yeah, me too. I was raised Catholic. And so from when we were babies, my grandfather was a jeweler. So he had given all the children crosses. And so I still have them. Roz said she was trying to get in.
I just admitted her.
Okay.
She tried before and it disappeared before I could let her in.
Ah,
there she is. Well,
I hear her.
Wasn't that
I went up to admit you and it was just gone. I'm like, okay.
Wasn't that, yeah, I don't know what was going on. Wasn't that adventurous? She,
We're talking about the Christian cross. And did you have anything you want to say about that, Roz?
no,
Well, then we're done. Then we're moving on to the Hamsa. And I was trying to show these to Terry Ann before we started the show. And because of my background, it might be hard to see. So this, I'm going to point to it. And it's this little design right here that's the hand, like this. Right here. That's a Hamsa. And it's also called evil eye. It's the Arabic word for five, so 5 fingers. And it's the sign of protection. So called evil eye, but it's really about repelling evil. It isn't evil itself. And so it's little things like that that I think can lead to such misunderstanding in the rest of the world. They see the word evil and just, oh my gosh, it's evil. No, it's against evil. So it is the open right hand with an eye drawn in the center of the palm, and it's also called the Hand of Fatima. I have some jewelry with that on it from my belly dancing days. And it's called the Hand of Miriam in the Middle East and in Northern Africa. So it's got a lot of countries that it has some symbolism from. So it's believed that if you wear it or hang it in your home, people with negative thoughts or vibrations cannot harm you. So there's something good. I might start wearing my little belly dancing Hamsa pendant more often. Basically, it prevents you from the evil eye, like people giving you the evil eye. You've heard of that? People trying to put a curse on you in some way, and other harmful energies. So that's where that came from. And I think that's so interesting. And a lot of people are really drawn to that symbol. I think they know what it means, the people generally who do. Let's talk about Flower of Life. And Tyrion, you've talked about this one before when we were talking about some other symbols in a show. It's this one here. So it's interlocking. I'm trying to hold it where you can see it. Right here.
There it is.
Under my finger, it's an interlocking flower design. Can you see it?
Yep.
Okay. I'm sorry it's so small. It's the only picture I could find that had all of these on it. So my apologies for that. But we did a show on sacred geometrics, and Terry Ann had some good things to say about that on the show, and I think Melissa, who was with us then, did as well. But it's overlapping geometric circles, and it demonstrates the connection that's deep-seated in human lives. It is one of the most prolific symbols of sacred geometry, and it dates back to various cultures in human civilization. Some say it's existed since the time of Sumerians, which is the first civilization known in the world. So that's one of the oldest known symbols. And I think it's pretty intricate for that, don't you think? Like we think of those ancient things would be like, we think of like caveman drawings, but that's no caveman drawing there. That's very precise.
And I wonder, I've seen it drawn with a protractor. Did you ever see?
No.
It's pretty intricate. So I'm really, wondering, did they like use a pendulum and just like draw it out, and how it all came about?
I think I could do it better with, remember that spirograph thing where you put the little, what was that called? Spiral something?
I love that.
I loved that thing, and it could make that. As a matter of fact, I think it did.
Yeah, I think you could get all kinds of sacred geometric prints and patterns and stuff out of that thing.
What is it called? I can't.
Spirograph.
It is spirograph. Okay, it just didn't sound right.
I was obsessed with that thing when I was a kid.
Me too. I used to spend day after day after day just playing with that. I had all different colored pens that I would use with it.
Yes.
But when you look at that symbol, the flower of life, like you observe 7 overlapping symbols, and that represents patterns of creation. And all the interlocking rings in that symbol have their own significance, and it can be linked to various situations defining mathematics, medicine, and even music. And we know like mathematics and music are highly linked, but I was explaining to somebody the other day that just because I'm really good at music, somebody skipped me on the math gene. So they don't always go together.
You didn't get in that line.
I did not. I missed that line. I must have been off singing somewhere. Let's talk about Yin Yang, because that's one you see it in tattoos, you see it on t-shirts, you see it used in advertising. It's duality. It's a lot of things. It's male, female, black, white, good, evil. It's many different things. Did you have something you want to say about that, Terry Ann?
Yin Yang, I love, that's another symbol for me that came around. It comes up very often, actually, when I see it in different places. For as much as I love like the straight lines with triangles and stuff, something to me about that little piece that's in it, it looks like a apostrophe or something, something, I'm drawn to that type of drawing, if that makes sense.
Very fluid. I'll show that. It's this one that you've probably seen it right under my finger. The interlocking black, white, with a little dot.
Male, female.
It kind of looks like curvy water drops. But yeah, so we see that all the time. And I just remember before you mentioning that you've been drawn to that symbol, Terry Ann. So it represents the masculine and feminine energy existing in the world, which is so great that so far back that was recognized that it's two halves that work together. It's not, a giant male side and a little tiny sliver of female. They're equal and working together and fitted together to work as a team. It acts as a reminder of the law of balance and represents harmonization of duality. So I love that too, because, we say all the time, like, wouldn't it be a boring world if everybody was the same? And I think it works on a global scale like that too, like the differences working together well. No matter how dark or light, knowledge or ignorant, masculine or feminine, everything needs balance. And that's what that symbol reminds us. So if you didn't know that, perhaps, and you're drawn to that, perhaps that's an important concept to you that you like to see a reminder of. It's used extensively across all of Chinese culture, and teaching this symbol of duality reestablishes peace and solace in the universe. So you can consider that to be like an Eastern version of the peace symbol, which we're going to talk about later too. I want to see if this is one. I've never even seen that one, so I don't even want to talk about that. But Star of David, this is a hard one to see because it's all blue, but right under my finger, I'm sure you've seen it. I wish it wasn't all blue. But basically, it's two triangles turned on different angles, and that's originally known as the Shield of David. And it symbolizes the connection between God and man, or a union between male and female. What does that remind you of? What did we just talk about? Yin Yang. Yes, just another version of that. It's widely used in Kabbalism, and the Star of David represents the union of opposites like fire and water. And there are various studies that defy the significance of divine connection and believe it instead represents 6 directions in space, like up, down, east, west, north, south, and center, which is the space in the center of the star. So depends on your belief system as to what that means, but it's one of those two. And I see a lot of people wearing that symbol. So of course it's related usually to the Jewish faith, and they'll wear that much like, Christians wear a cross. Just a little reminder. Here's one, if you're into yoga, meditation, you have seen the symbol. Actually, if you hang out with anybody that does, you've seen the Om. O-M. Let me show it to you so you're not guessing. This one right here. So it doesn't have to be on a yellow background, but it looks like a number 3 with a little squiggle, a dot. It's a symbol you're going to see lots of times connected to yoga, meditation. It's on all kinds of merchandise these days. I mean, you can hardly walk in Sedona. I don't think you could go to the grocery store and not see 5 of those at least. It's rightly called the mother of all mantras. And I think that's interesting because you think of a mantra as something you say, and it is. So Om is a symbol, and Om is a sound, the most common sound you make when meditating. Even if you don't know anything else to say, you can just sit there and go, Om, and you just keep saying that over and over. It's the same. It's the visual representation of that sound. So it's supposed to represent the primordial sound of creation. And when you chant it, it helps you connect to divine energy. And the power of this symbol, like looking at it, wearing it, chanting it, it helps open your third eye, which is right here. So third eye helps you with your intuition, your ability to see, discern, intuition. And in Hinduism, it blends time, past, present, and future. And I love that about it. Like, I did not know that. That was a new one to me. They say that it manifests itself in deep meditation. So that's why, you're supposed to chant that Om on and on and on and on till you get into a good deep trance state. If you don't get deep enough, you don't get the benefits. You can find inscriptions of that symbol in medieval era manuscripts, temples, spiritual retreats, and it's in religions like Hinduism, Buddhism. It's very widely used, and it's become very popular here in the States. I'd say since the 60s is when, how would I see it before then? I was born in the 60s. I was going to say I've seen it since the 60s. So it's been around for a long time. Any thoughts on Om you two want to talk about or share?
I love Om. Om was probably, when I started yoga, was like the first thing that you chant. Mm-hmm. As you said, when getting into a meditative space. And, long before, I don't think not everybody understands that connection of meditation with yoga. They think sometimes yoga is just, going and doing stretching, but it does involve some type of meditation usually. And you said chanting Om is really powerful. I use it if I'm getting a sore throat, or if I feel like my throat chakra is blocked, just chanting Om, that starts to, you can feel it start to open up.
I agree. And I'm thinking back as you're talking about that, my mind went back to living in the Scottsdale area, and I would go to a group meditation in downtown Phoenix that was really good. It was in a bookstore in a back room, not in amongst the books where people are trying to peruse and read. But there was a group of us, about 15, and we'd sit in a square actually, and we would do that. We would chant. They would ring a little bell, and we would just sit silently and we'd chant Om. And then at a certain point, 40 minutes in, I think they'd ring the little bell, and then you're done. And eventually we went on to more complicated chants that we would do, but I loved it right from the start. Boy, sitting and meditating with a group is very powerful. Just like, we're always talking about when we do our intentions as a group, it's so much more powerful than when we sit and do it individually. Same thing with meditation. So even if you just want to sit outside in your yard and chant Om, give it a shot. Next, we're going to talk about the Lotus Flower. That's another one you see a lot with yoga and meditation. And it's this, I'm trying to make sure you can see it. Let's see. Here, tell me when you can see it, ladies.
It's kind of, disappearing into your background.
There's a way I did it before. Let me try to figure it out.
Move it to
Here we go.
There you go.
So right there, I don't know if you can see it, Lotus Flower. It's just a pretty little flower. And so it is 5 petals, and it's got a little green base to it. Most often though, you just see that like a black and white drawing. Most of these things are kind of like logos, that they're just black on white. And you can see gorgeous ones of artistic drawings and paintings in full color, and photographs that are just gorgeous. So the lotus flower is a real flower, and it's one of the most celebrated Buddhist symbols. So did you know that it represents enlightenment, the flower itself? I think because it grows in muddy water and still grows to be such a beautiful flower, and they look at that like us spiritually, like you can grow up in the most toxic environment, you can be surrounded by challenges and chaos, and still grow your way into this beautiful soul that's, shining light and helping other people and moving ahead. It really does symbolize that. It relates to transformation, resurrection. And it kind of offers a hope of empowerment. And you'll see it's just kind of in all kinds of traditions, but it reminds us that no matter what the difficulty is, it will pass. And boy, I think right now with the world and the state it is, maybe we all need to be wearing and growing lotus flowers. It encourages forgiveness and gratitude and also detachment. And that's because the way the form of the water is slipping through the petals, that, you know, you can grow up out of that muddy water and it's all around you and you're still growing and blossoming and the water just slips around you. So I don't know. I did not know that. I just thought it was a beautiful flower, and I knew it was certainly associated with Eastern traditions and yoga, but we see that all over the place too, don't we?
I think like the rose, there are different colors as well, and different colors mean different things.
And that I know because I am a medieval history buff. That relates back to medieval times, and it was tradition for roses that you would give a lady a rose of a certain color for different reasons. So a white one, a yellow one, a red one meant different things. It was a message within the color of the rose, and so that's where that started. I don't know about lotus flower. I almost always see them as pink, and so I don't know if they even grow in other colors. If somebody's listening and you know, send us a message if you know, because
I've seen them as white as well, so I
That's
don't know
true.
if they,
That's true.
so white I would associate with like purity. Pink maybe enlightenment. So I guess it depends on, and you know, maybe there's other colors. I'd be curious to see.
Yeah, I hope somebody out there knows. You know, if I get a thought to do that, I'll check that out and find out too. But I did not see anything about that. This is the tree of life right here. So it literally is a tree with leaves on it and then root system coming out the bottom of it. That's something you're going to see frequently. I'm really drawn to that symbol. I love, as a matter of fact, I painted it at the last paint class I went to. It wasn't even, we were supposed to be doing pine trees, but I realized I'm painting a tree of life. It was so
you're
weird.
Virgo, very grounded.
I guess it's in my dining room.
In the earth.
Thought something. I guess so. I don't know. I thought that was really interesting. The symbolization for it is it can be perceived in different forms depending on the religion. It represents connection, creation, unity, and it also honors diversity and celebrates the common origin. In Christianity, it's believed to be a tree from where Adam and Eve picked the forbidden fruit. Eve ate the apple and it was all downhill from there. In a few other cultures, it actually establishes a connection between the four earth elements. We heard this with another symbol, but earth, wind, air, and fire. I really, I never thought of it as any of that. Did you ladies? Did you connect it with those things?
I didn't.
I don't know what I connected it with. I've just always felt a kinship with it. But I just think it's a beautiful symbol, and I'm always drawn to art with it on it. But maybe it's the unity. That's a big thing for me.
I think that's well known. There's so many pieces of jewelry or
Yes.
T-shirts or journals even that carry the symbol of the tree of life. Even in Disney World, I think there's a big, in the animal kingdom, the tree of life.
Yes, absolutely. It is. It looks very much like it. And I watched a movie recently where I'm terrible at remembering the names of movies, but there was a movie about, it was 2012, something like that. And it was a Nicolas Cage movie. And at the end of the movie, these children are transported to another planet because Earth was going to be destroyed. And so children were transported and put on these gorgeous planets. And the last shot is these children running towards a beautiful tree of life that's just, the whole scenery was just gorgeous. And I thought, wow, that is, hugely symbolic, like another little Adam and Eve. So it's used a lot in about anything you can think of. I want to talk about this. We'll probably do a whole show on this at some time. This is if I can get, that's the problem with a background. Here we go. A mandala right here. The bottom one. And it's hard to see it on this, but they can be in so many different designs. They're represented, it's more geometric designs. It's geometrical figures enveloped in a circle because the literal meaning of the word mandala is circle. And it represents the universe and patterns of nature. You use it in meditation, and in its epicenter helps you concentrate and intensifies focus. And I think in some ways, like, it makes me think of, I do hypnotherapy, and it makes me think of that traditional, you know, the spiraling in, and when they use that in old time, in the original hypnotherapy, you were supposed to stare into the center of that spiral, and it would draw you in and help you let go of your thinking and just get into the right trance state. I think this is similar to that, just kind of focusing into the center of the design and letting go of your thoughts. It originates from Tibetan Buddhism, and they're used as a means of worship. And this has always blown my mind. I got to watch this at Tlaquepaque here in Sedona years back. They had visiting monks, and they would draw intricate mandalas and then destroy it. They would use sand and spend all these hours making these beautiful mandalas and then take their hand and just destroy them. The act of destruction relates to the mortality of human life. That's always the way it is. It's not meant to be something saved, but my heart lurched when I watched them do that. I didn't know they were going to do that. So I was watching for hours, and I was looking forward to getting to walk over and see it closer up, and then they're like, it was gone. But it was really interesting to watch that. They're so fast with it. Have you ever watched, even on TV, them making those?
Yeah, it's mesmerizing is the word I was looking for.
Mm-hmm.
They just do it dot by dot and then some bigger dots. And that's why I like the one that you put in my office, because I do a lot of good work in there focusing in.
I saw that piece of art from across the store. Like, I saw it maybe 100 yards away, and it like pulled me over, and I'm like, oh, that's so beautiful. So I'm glad it ended up in your office, Terry, and it's just gorgeous. We're going to talk about one that is going to be, it is controversial because it gets a bad rap, and I don't think I have it on here, but it's the pentacle or a pentagram. And when people see that and hear it, first thing they think of is, oh, witchcraft. You know, somebody's doing something evil. No. So it's represented by a star encompassed in a circle, and as a natural star, there are 5 peaks in it. So the peak pointing upwards in that star represents spirit, and the other 4 symbolize all the other 4 elements: air, water, fire, and earth. It's used for spiritual protection. And yes, it is used by Wiccans. And it has, I think it can be used in dark magic if somebody chose to, but that is not what it's for. It's worn as a talisman against evil, and it's meant to be spiritual protection. So just because you see that symbol or you see somebody wearing it does not mean they're doing something dark or evil. And I think that's really important to know, because there can be so many misunderstandings about such things. Here's a fun one, though. I think you know what this looks like, but I'm going to show it to you anyway. Peace symbol. Okay, you cooperate. There. You know what peace symbol looks like. It's, you know, one little line up and 2 lines like this in a circle. So yes, the 60s peace sign, that has become a gigantic symbol, a spiritual symbol around the world. And Roz, I bet you have some experience with that.
Little bit. Mostly through my experiences. I was just recalling some things that went on when I was working with Ben.
Really?
Yes.
And the peace symbol?
You know, the thing that was interesting about all of that process was there was a lot of symbolism that was going on that I didn't know anything about. And I was just envisioning, I did deal with the pentagram. I did deal with trying to shift that energy, and shifting that pentagram symbol to change the energy around the events that were happening. So not specifically thinking of the peace symbol, but going back to the star of David. I was just remembering some of those things.
I was thinking you might have had some experience with the peace symbol back in the 60s, because I know you told me you had your hippie days.
Yes. Well, I never thought of it as being, you know, I never thought of it as being magical or anything. It was just that very cool peace symbol. And of course, I was wearing it on my shirts, wearing it on my jeans, etc.
I did in the late 60s and 70s. Absolutely. I just loved it. And I didn't really ever think about it. I mean, peace, yes, I always wanted peace even as a child, but I never really thought about any greater symbolism. I just thought it was really a great sign.
I
But
remember being at the corner of Haight and Ashbury in 1968, and talk about the peace symbol. And
that's what I'm
wow,
thinking. Yeah, like it just bursted out onto the scene, because it really, do you know it was created in 1958. It was a logo for a British campaign for nuclear disarmament. And
wow,
he explained it like his design was meant to be humans with hands at their side standing in front of the earth. So that's what it originally
never
symbolized. That's
heard
what it
that
was for.
before. That's
I
amazing.
hadn't either. And of course it represents peace, and it's been used globally under various circumstances, wars, violence, protest, and it's used so extensively. It's even manifested as an emoji in all of the keyboards, on our phones, computers. And
And
so we see it all the time.
yeah, that's what I was going to say. I mean, we just see it all the time when we're watching. I watch a lot of video of different places on the earth where people are protesting right
Yes.
now. And they're protesting various things, but the number one thing right now, when you see it, when you see these large groups and the peace symbol appears, and everybody's focusing on that.
Yeah.
And
And
looking back, I mean, the 60s were such a dramatic time in terms of the creation of our thought processes and you know, controlling our emotions and our thoughts. Pretty interesting time.
yeah, sounds kind of familiar, doesn't it? We talked about the cross. We talked about that. Oh, here's another one. And because we live in the Southwest, I thought we should really talk about it. And I don't think it's on this sheet either, which is weird. But the medicine wheel. So when you see a medicine wheel, that's something like I've always had a medicine wheel garden for decades, and I just love having a medicine wheel in my yard. It originates from Native Americans. We're in Arizona, so we have the Yavapai Indian tribe, the Hopi tribe reservation is really close to us. It represents harmony, and it's also an attempt to establish peaceful interaction amidst the four elements of the earth. Again, air, water, wind, earth. People use it to manifest spiritual energy and strengthen their inner vision. So it's also called the sacred hoop or sacred circle. And it's been used by so many generations of Native Americans for healing and teaching, and simultaneously those two. There are many interpretations about it, but it always is about the connection with cosmic things. So it's just a really beautiful sign. There's another one I want to be sure we get to today that involves Native American while we're on that topic, and that's dream catchers. So you see these in gift shops. You see them, pictures of them, cards everywhere. I see them a lot, so I must be getting a message. And it's represented by that wooden hoop crafted with a specific form of net. So it's a woven net, usually with beads on it, some feathers, there's leather involved. It's believed to prevent nightmares and bring good luck. Actually, it's thought to catch the nightmares, so that you put it above your head. It catches the nightmares so that you don't have them. And I think one thing really amazing about it, like when my daughter was 9 or 10 years old, she woke up. She's and 1/8 Native American, so I don't know if this is why, but she woke up one morning and said, "I need hoops, leather, thread, beads, feathers." I'm like, "Why?" "I'm going to make dream catchers." I'm like, "Do you know how to make dream catchers?" "Yeah, I dreamed it last night." I bought the stuff for her, and she sat down and made just instantly these gorgeous, the family members still have them, just like perfect dream catchers. I'm like, that is nuts. So, you just never know how you're going to get your inspiration, and children are amazing.
That's pretty powerful.
And then she always had, I had one over my head, she has one over her head, and I saw it still at her house, and she made one for her youngest son because he was having some nightmares. And so there's a reason people do things like that. And the other things I really want to be sure we cover today, there's a big one, and that is spirals, just spirals in general. So did you know it represents the female womb, fertility, and life energy? So I do love the triple spiral that's behind me. That's my thing. But spirals in general, man, I love them. It's one of the oldest sacred symbols in existence. And you observe it in so many forms of nature, plants, minerals, weather, death, growth. I mean, there's whole websites dedicated to the spirals that you'll see in nature. It reflects the pattern of new growth and the evolution of life's journey. So if you're drawn to that, those things are probably important for you. I do want to talk about the triple spiral. I love that symbol so much that when I joined a band and we wanted to change the band name, and I came up with triple spiral was our symbol for our band. It was a Celtic band, and I am Celtic heritage, and I don't know if that's why I'm so drawn to spirals and triple spiral, but I do know a lot of Celtic people who didn't even know that that was a big part of Celtic heritage, but they just really were drawn to it. It's also known as a tirade, and it's represented by the 3 spirals connected by one line, and it represents the flow of time. So each spiral that you see it behind me. I'm going to get in the middle so you can see it better. It symbolizes earthly life, the afterlife, and reincarnation. Isn't that interesting?
Oh, I love that.
I didn't know it either. It's found in Celtic arts and architecture. It's found in the oldest known forms of Celtic art, which are thousands of years old. And while its inception dates back to the Neolithic era, it's found at the entrance to Newgrange, Ireland. So if you ever go to Ireland, I have not had the pleasure yet, but I know all the places I want to go. You're going to see a lot of ancient carvings like this one. This is an actual ancient carving in all kinds of places around Ireland. And if you've been drawn to that, now you probably have a better idea of why. I'm going to see if this one's on here so I can at least describe it to you. It's not. So the endless knot is another type of Celtic knot. And it looks kind of like, it ends up being sort of like a tall rectangle with interwoven knotwork in it. When you look at it, you cannot spot the beginning or the end. It's an infinite knot. And it's crafted to represent that the entire world is interconnected and radiates calm and movement. Well, I'm not seeing that lately, but I'm sure it's supposed to. Apart from this, that knot acts as a reminder of how time is an illusion and Dharma is eternal. Ain't that the truth? It's also an embodiment of Buddha's infinite compassion in Buddhism, and symbolizes the fact that earthly life and religious thought are intertwined. Contrary to popular belief, it shows people that enlightenment need not necessarily mean that you need to give up on worldly matters. I think that's so true. We're here in this human form because we're supposed to have the full human experience. If you get that's why people get airy-fairy, what we call airy-fairy. I think when they forget to connect to the earth, they forget about the earthly pleasures, of going out in nature, of connecting with people, eating good food, and they're always thinking about the spiritual stuff. You start to almost exist on this hovering presence above the earth where you're not really of it anymore. And so I think it's important. I think that's a great symbol if you feel like you're losing your grounding, if you need to be tethered a little bit better. And anyone on a serious spiritual journey has moments like that, don't you think, ladies?
Oh, yeah.
I think the biggest
Absolutely.
example is when, Roz, you have talked about when you do your dreaming, you do your astral travel and that little silver cord that connects you. Like, I think some people, maybe their silver cord isn't connected very well.
Gotta really make that a priority.
Mm-hmm.
Seriously.
I think I've talked about that too. Like, I get a little nervous with some of this travel that I do as a mystic, that if I go too far into wherever I find myself, that I won't be able to find my way back. But I know that's not true now, because I told you I accidentally walked into it. I woke up on Christmas Eve at my sister's house, but I wasn't in her house anymore. Suddenly I was in some like 17th century French palace that I've been there before. And I was standing up in it when I realized, I'm like, oh God, I got out of bed. Now can I find the bed? And I couldn't find the doorknob. All I could feel was the carvings on the wall, the tapestries hanging on the wall. And finally, I found the doorknob to the hall, and I opened it, and it all went away. I'm like, okay. So now I know no matter how far I go with this, I think I'll be okay. I'll find my way back. But we all have to be grounded. Any other thoughts you ladies have about spiritual symbols, something you think's important? There's so many, we couldn't possibly cover them in one show.
I like mudras. I use those a lot.
What does it
There's
look
that.
like?
So mudras are all different hand symbols. The one I really like that comes to mind, and I probably do it every day, as piggybacking on what you just said, is grounding. And so you take your hands like this, and I close my eyes and I put my fingers in my upper thighs. And if you do it, if you want to try it, it sort of just like pulls you right back into your body.
Are those some pressure points there that are good for grounding? Interesting.
And so then you can visualize, like if you're out like on a bus and you don't want to like sit there and like, fully visualize with all this noise, and you can just put your fingers in your thighs, close your eyes quick, and visualize that. For me, I feel like just like swoosh.
I think we all need as much of that as we can get right now. And it's not always about coming untethered in a spiritual way, but feeling untethered in a, I don't know what's going to happen in my life or in the world next way, where you start to kind of disconnect because it's overwhelming. So I think grounding in any way is important. I'm so glad you shared that.
You have to at that point, and when you were talking about the spirals, of course, I was thinking of vortexes.
Yeah,
Megan
absolutely.
Sedona.
And it's about time. And so vortexes and time, that's interesting, isn't it?
But I really was just, all of these symbols are so, they're so important, really. They're sort of ignored, but, they all have an intense, very spiritual, emotional meaning for people.
They do. And like I said, I think that some of these I didn't know so much about that I was researching. My first thought was, wow, there's going to be people who watch the show, listen to it, and by the way, if you're listening to this, as most people do, I'm going to put a picture of these on our blog, on our website, so that you can see them and know what we're talking about. So I feel bad. It's kind of hard when you're showing pictures and people are listening on podcast, but you can also look them up based on the name. But I think people are going to hear this, see this, and realize, oh my gosh, I've always been drawn to that, and now I know why. So hopefully you all got something out of this today, that it's helpful for you. We thank you for tuning in today. And as always, if you have questions and you're watching, listening later, you can send them to us by email, put them on the show site, on YouTube, whichever you prefer. We're happy to hear from you. And tune in next week. Our topic is shadow work. I think that's going to be a really fun topic, a really deep, interesting one that's going to get you thinking. So you've been watching the Sedona Soul Sisters Show. If you'd like more information about us or our services, please visit our website, sedonasoulsisters.com. Subscribe so you don't miss a thing. And tune in next Friday. We'll see you then. Bye-bye.